All right. Welcome to Ironside Learn. We're going to skip the lunch part today due to Tanit Esther. This week's Parashat is Parashat Tezave. This week's Parashat is a continuation from last week's Parashat. Last week we were talking about all the donations that we're doing to the Mishkan. And we saw what everybody gave, as well as where it went to, the type of materials that were needed for the building of the Mishkan, the putting together. And in this week's Parashat, it talks completely about the Kohanim only. So they say that Aaron Kohen was sad, that he sees that everybody had part in putting the Mishkan together and he didn't do anything, he didn't give anything. So Hashem consoles him and he tells them, you know, you have the loftiest job of all. You have the loftiest position of all. You're going to be the Kohen HaGadol. You're going to be lighting the menorah. And this whole parasha talks about the Kohen, his duties, and his garb, his clothing, and the particular things in the Mishkan that he's going to be responsible for. The clothing of the Kohen Gadol can be a whole class on its own, but it's very, very interesting. It talks over there about the mitznefet, the tzitz, choshen, avnet, ephod, me'il, keton, michnasayim. Talked about the hat that he was wearing, the special headband with gold that said Kodesh Lashem, then the special tunic, then the apron on top of it, then the ephod, the breastplate with all the diamonds on it, 2 onyx stones on the shoulders. Very interesting things, and each one had its own unique symbolism. Even on the bottom of the tunic, there were some bells in the shape of pomegranates. Many, many things could be said. I just mentioned a couple of things about the breastplate. The breastplate had the Urim Vetumim. Urim Vetumim. This is something, the breastplate opened up a little bit, and you could put over there like this piece of paper that had Hashem's name on it, closed it back up, and each stone was a different color, a different type. And there were times when the Jewish people would come to the Kohen Gadol and ask a question, and then the actual stones would light up. And according to the way they lit up, you would be able to know the answer. One of the most popular examples of that is with Hannah. Hannah was praying for a child, and she was praying, and Eliah Kohen was looking at her from afar, and he thought that something was wrong with the lady. So the breastplate went on with the lights, and he deciphered it as Shikora. In other words, she's drunk, because he got the letter Shin, Chaf, Resh, and He from it. However, he actually deciphered it wrong, because it actually meant Keshera. She's kosher. She's not drunk. Right? We actually learned how to pray from Hannah, how she was moving her lips and how she was praying. So many amazing stories about the garb of the Kohen Gadol. But one thing that stood out for me, more than the duties of the Kohen, and more of the clothing and the menorah and all the things that he needs to do in his position, the thing that stood out for me the most in this week's parasha is that Moshe Rabbeinu's name is not mentioned. This is the only parasha since he's been introduced to us in Parashat Shemot. This is the only parasha that you don't see Moshe's name mentioned. So something that's very interesting about that, you can see that the Torah is not in chronological order. There's certain things that come before, some certain things come after, and basically the reason why Moshe is not mentioned in this week's parasha is because a few parashiot from now, the Jewish people are going to go astray again, and they're going to get in trouble. And Hashem gets so upset with them that he goes to Moshe Rabbeinu and he tells them, I'm ready to get rid of all of them. I'm ready to annihilate all the Jews, exterminate, get rid of every single Jew, and start fresh with you, Moshe Rabbeinu. I've had it with this group. What does Moshe Rabbeinu say? Mechenni na misifrecha. Erase me from your book if you're going to do that. He didn't agree to it. Some people would say, oh, you know what, yeah, great idea, start fresh with me, you know? Moshe Rabbeinu said, no way. That's the Jewish nation. Those are my people. Those are the people from Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. No way we're starting fresh with these people. He stood up for them. What a leader. The language that he used over there, Mecheni na misifrecha, the rabbis tell us if you take the last word, misifrecha, and you split it up, it says misefer chaf. In other words, chaf has the numerical value of 20. It says, erase me from the 20th book, or from the 20th chapter. So if you count from Bereshit, 20 parashiyot, it's Tezave. So on the 20th chapter, his name wasn't mentioned. Even though that he didn't go through with it, they say when a tzaddik speaks, Hashem has to mekayim, has to make it happen. So even though he said it like that, you can see that this week's parashah, he's not mentioned. And just because he's not mentioned, I wanted to take the opportunity to speak about Moshe today. He has an incredible story. Some of us just know the story of the Chumash, that he was, since he was a baby, then later on when he was around 17 years old, he ran away because Paro wanted to kill him. And then when he was about 79 and 80 years old, he came back to save the Jewish nation. But what happened in the 60 years in between? For that, you have to go to the Midrash. In the Midrash, they open it up for us. So, let's talk about Moshe a little bit. Moshe, we know, since he was a baby, he was very special. When he was born, his face was illuminated, his whole family knew, this is a special baby. He was born during the time that the Paro had a decree that every boy that is born to the Nile, you have to throw him, right? So he was born during that time period. So his family put him in a basket, they put him on the Nile, try to save him. Who saved him? Paro's daughter, Batya. She goes to the Nile, she hears a baby cry, she goes, she takes him in, and she brings him all the way to the palace, to Paro's palace. Moshe grew up on the lap of Paro. Think about it, look how ironic, how funny it is, that of all the people that Batya is going to adopt, and out of all the people that are going to sit on Paro's lap, it's going to be Moshe. And he lived in the lap of luxury all those years. At the age of 17, he goes outside and he sees the Jewish people as slaves, and he sees the Egyptians tormenting the Jewish slaves, and he couldn't tolerate it, to the point that he hit somebody and he killed him. And from that point, by standing up for his fellow Jews, from that point he ran away because the king was after him. So this is where the Chumash stops and the Midrash picks up. What happened right after that? So they say that Moshe went to Midian, and over there he joined an army, and he became a general, and he became a top general, and he fought for 10 years in this particular army. And he won. And the people liked so much his service as a general, the people of Cush, which is Ethiopia, asked him to be their king. And Moshe was the king of Ethiopia for 40 years. For 40 years, Moshe was the king of Ethiopia. There's a lot more to this story. If you read the Midrash of Ma'am Noez and many other Midrashim, they go into incredible detail of the stories of war and the tactics that he used, how he became king, and later on how he left the kingdom. I mean, the details over there are incredible. Not enough time for this particular class, but just know that Moshe became a king of Ethiopia. And after 40 years, they asked him to vacate the kingdom, so somebody from their lineage, from the Ethiopian lineage, can take over. And Moshe continued his journey. They let him go over there with a lot of gifts, a lot of honor. They did him a big feast for him. And then the next thing that we find him, after being a general in the army and after being a king in Ethiopia, we find him in the typical Jewish meeting spot for shidduchim. He's by a well, where all our forefathers found their wives. He's there also. Who does he find? He finds his shidduch. He finds his wife over there, Tzipora. He helps her again, draws the water from the well, the classic way to get a girl in the Jewish history. And she brings him over to to her father's house, Yitro, which is his father-in-law, and over there something very interesting happened. If you remember, a couple of weeks ago we were talking about Yitro. And Yitro, we said, was at one point also an advisor to Paro. So at the time when he was an advisor to Paro, he actually went into his treasure chest or into his room filled with treasures. And some say that it was even Yosef, because Yosef also had a tremendous amount of money that he put together when they had the famine in Egypt. And he went into that special place, and out of all the treasures, he took one thing from them. He took the mateh, the staff. This is an ancient staff. This is the staff of Adam HaRishon that got passed down from generation to generation. It made it to the hands of Yosef, and when it was in the hands of Yosef, Yosef stored it in this room. Yitro went and grabbed it and took it from there. And when he came back home, what did he do? He planted it right in the front yard. And he says, anyone who can take this staff out of the ground can marry my daughter. And throughout the years, many men have come and tried to take it out of the ground, and nobody could budge it. Incredibly huge muscle-bound Midyanim or Egyptians came and tried to take the staff out, and they weren't successful. When Moshe comes to visit Yitro, after Tzipporah explained to him that he helped her out in the well, Yitro tests Moshe and he tells him, "Can you take that stick out for me?" And Moshe takes it out like as if he was lifting a feather. Yitro didn't know what to do at that point. He threw Moshe in a pit. And Moshe was in a pit, in jail, for 10 years. 10 years he was in a pit. And the entire time, Tzipporah is the one that took care of him and brought him water and brought him food. Eventually, after a while, Yitro took him out from there and was able to give his blessings for his daughter to marry Moshe. And that's when the Chumash picks back up again. Then we see Moshe was at the time of the burning bush, and over there we saw that he on Hashem's request to go save the Jewish people from Egypt, he went and took his wife and his two sons. One son was Gershom, the other one was Eliezer. And we were able to see him pick it up. So you can see from 17 to 79, or from 17 to 80, you can see that he was a general in the army. He was the king of Ethiopia. He was even able to, he was even in a pit for 10 years. So you can see how those 60 years really filled up with a lot of different things that normally we're not privy to know about Moshe Rabbeinu. And once we cut to Sefer Shemot, we see that here now he's after Yetziat Mitzrayim, Parashat Tezave. He's after Yetziat Mitzrayim. He's after Kriyat Yam Suf. They're now in the desert, and later on, past this parasha, we're going to have a lot of other stories of him defeating a lot of different the giant kings of Og, Sichon, Melech HaAmorim, Og Melech HaBashan. They said that they were huge. They were giants. They were giants. These particular giants were the ones that giving protection to all the people in the land at that time. And before the Jewish people can enter Eretz Yisrael, Moshe had to take care of those two gangsters, these two giants that were protecting area. They would take money in order for them to protect the land. And they say that over there, give you a little bit more about Moshe's stature. They say that he was 5 meters tall, over 15 feet tall. Ironically, Paro was the length of an amma, about 2-3 feet tall. Could you imagine that? When Moshe comes to speak to Paro, Moshe is like 5 meters long and things like that. He could just give him one good smack and hit him all the way to the other side of Egypt. Imagine like the stature of these people. And then later on, Moshe Rabbeinu, being 5 meters tall, goes and takes on a giant. They say he jumped off of a rock and he was only able to get the Og's ankle. And he was still able to defeat him. But can you imagine how tall was Og in comparison to Moshe? Moshe also, right now we're just talking about the story of who he is right now, but Moshe also has a history of his reincarnations. They say the name Moshe stands for Moshe, Shet, and Hevel. Shet and Hevel were the two sons of Adam HaRishon. There's Cain and Hevel, right? And after Cain and Hevel, the Adam Rishon had another son. His name was Shet. The rabbis tell us that Moshe was the reincarnation, the Gilgul of these three people. And furthermore, after these Gilgulim, there's Nitzotzot, these sparks of Moshe's Neshama that came into play in other rabbis. And the rabbis of Hasidut, they say that he was able to be part of the Baal Shem Tov and Baal Tanya, and even they say Rabbi Nachman from Breslev, Rabbi Nachman, they say that he said that from Moshe till Moshe there's not going to be another Moshe. In other words, it's a famous thing that they say about the Rambam, but he said that he looked both sides, he looked to the left and to the right. In other words, he checked all the generations. He said there's not going to be another spark of Moshe that comes in. I am the last spark. At one point, maybe I'll even be able to tell you the story of how Moshe fixed the tikkun of Cain and Hevel. An incredible story from Bereshit to Shemot in regards to his reincarnations. Now, yes, he's an incredible individual. There's no question that Moshe Rabbeinu had so many stories that we're privy to, some that are behind the scenes, some that are midrashim, like I just shared with you, the 60 years in between the time that he left Egypt and he came back. But I think it's very appropriate to see, where's Moshe Rabbeinu in Purim? Right? Right now it's the holiday of Purim coming up. Right now we're in Ta'anit Esther, we're fasting. In a couple of days we're going to be reading the Megillah, big holiday, Purim, which I'll discuss at the end of the class, also the merits of Purim. But just recently, just a couple of days ago, I came across this beautiful midrash about Moshe Rabbeinu's involvement in Purim. Now, take a look at this. There was the Mishteh that the Achashverosh invited all the Jews to come have a big feast. So, in that feast, there were 18,500 Jews that participated. As soon as they sat down and started to partake in the meal, the Yetzer Hara, the devil himself, goes straight up to the Shamayim and wants to prosecute those Jews. Look at this. Jews sitting with Goyim. It's halacha. You're not allowed to sit with a Goy. You're not allowed to break bread with a Goy. They're sitting over there. They're enjoying themselves. I want a decree right now. I want a psak din right now. The Yetzer Hara is pushing like quickly. I want the punishment for all these Jews right now. This is a big no-no in Hashem's in the Jewish world. How can this be? As soon as the Yetzer Hara came to the court in the Shamayim, and this is happening, where they opened up the books on 18,500 Jews, who comes into the picture? Eliyahu Navi. Eliyahu Navi comes to the picture and sees what's going on. He runs to Avraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov. He tells them, your children are in trouble. 18,500 of your kids are right now being judged and possibly could get killed. Help. Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov say, whatever's supposed to be, will be. Hashem is just. Hashem is righteous. And they leave it at that. Eliyahu Navi goes to Moshe Rabbeinu. He says, Moshe Rabbeinu, you're the leader of the Jewish people. You got him out of Mitzrayim. Your children are in trouble. We have a gzar din in the Shamayim. The Yetzer Hara is trying to get a decree on 18,500 Jews. Help! Moshe Rabbeinu tells Eliyahu Navi, is there a tzaddik in this generation? Do we have a righteous man alive in this generation? He says, yes, we do. Mordechai. He says, okay. He says, and was this decree written betit or bedam? Tit means mud, dam means blood. He's asking him, well, right now, is this decree written in mud or in blood? He goes and it's written in mud. He says, okay, tell Mordechai to pray downstairs, and I'm going to pray upstairs, and Be'ezrat Hashem, the decree will be taken off. And that's how it happened. Moshe Rabbeinu actually helped us out. But to understand this a little bit better, and to also have concrete evidence that this happened, What is the difference between something written in mud or in blood? What does that mean? So something that's written in blood cannot be reversed. I'll give you an example of that. Unfortunately, what happened in the Holocaust was written in blood. Because during the time of the Holocaust, there were tremendous God-fearing Jews. And kids that never sinned. And people that did not deserve it. But they were part of the group. And big rabbis that were alive during that time actually testified to say that this is a decree given by God, written by blood. In other words, it's irreversible. We just have to go through it. The decree of the time of Mordechai is written in teat, in mud. That means that one, you still have a chance to reverse it. Now, if you go to the Megillah, it says over there that Haman was looking to le'abedam, to get rid of all the Jewish people, b'yom echad, to get rid of all the Jews in one day, le'abedam. So the rabbis tell us there's a cryptic message in that word, le'abedam. What's le'abedam? Cut that word in half. Lo bedam. Not in blood. In other words, the decree that he wants to get rid of all the Jewish people, that says the word le'abedam, it's a hint over there that decree, lo bedam. It wasn't written in blood. We can still reverse whatever's happening over here. And that's what happened. Mordechai prayed, Moshe prayed, and they were able to reverse all of Haman's ways because it wasn't written in blood. That's one chidush that I heard that I thought was so appropriate for the time that for the Parashat Tezave, where Moshe is not mentioned, to mention Moshe because he was a big part of Purim. Not only that, we know that Moshe was born in Zayin Adar and he died in Zayin Adar. In other words, he was born and he died on the same day. They say a person that happens to him, that means he lived a full life. Any person that dies on the same day that he was born, he lived a full life. So that's a little homage to Moshe. Be'ezrat Hashem will be able to touch on his other stories in the next few weeks. One last thing that you have to tap into is Purim. It's a very special holiday, but up until this year, I didn't know how special it was. I always thought it was the time when we get drunk, the time when we get dressed up, and the time when we go to shul and listen to the Megillah, and of course all the mitzvot that come along with it. And let's mention them. The mitzvot that are connected to Purim is matanot la'avyonim, give charity to the needy, mishloach manot, to give mishloach manot to at least one person, the Kriyat Megillah, listening to the Megillah, and you have over there the Seudah, to eat a proper Seudah, a festive Seudah. A festive Seudah in our books is meat and wine. So make sure you eat meat and you drink wine. Those are the mitzvot that are connected to the holiday of Purim. However, this year I found out that Purim is one of the holidays that is higher than any other holiday. The reason why it's higher than any holiday, they say Purim is Kippurim, because if you Kippur, right? Kippurim, Yom Kippurim, we think that's the biggest day of all in the Jewish religion. They say that Purim is Kippurim, it's even higher than Purim. Why? And Yom Kippur, Hashem gives out to a few. In Purim, one of the halachot is when you reach out your hand, anyone who reaches out his hand on Purim, you have to give. Kol hashulach yado notnim lo. So they say any person that asks on Purim, the law of that day, they give him. So I said, wow, this is a secret. How come we don't know that Purim is the highest holiday of all? So it's funny. I listened to Rabbi Yitzchak Cohen in one of his classes, and he says, the Yetzer Hara, the devil himself, came to the Shamayim and said the same thing. He says, how are you going to do this to me? You're going to put me out of business. How can you have a day in the year where where anybody that asks receives. There goes my whole business. How am I going to be able to do it? So Hashem tells the Yetzer Hara, he goes to him, well, I'll make one of the mitzvot, one where they have to eat and drink. And you know, the Jews, when you give them mitzvah like that, they're mehader. They make it even more than it's supposed to be. They'll be so busy with eating and drinking and festivities that they might not tap into it. He says, okay, it's a deal. But now that we know the secret, the rabbis tell us, yes, go listen to the Megillah, dress up, eat your food, even get drunk. But find time to run away from it all. Find a moment. Find 10 minutes. Find half hour. Find an hour to get away from it all and open up a book of Tehillim, open up a Chumash, do something, learn, and open up your heart to Hashem. They said on that day, anyone who stretches out his arm needs to receive. So don't get so busy with the happenings of the day. Make sure that you put some time aside to read Tehillim or to study some Torah, and then ask Hashem for your heart's desires. That is the secret of Purim. And like I said, it's almost passed over, even though that Passover is coming up. But most people are so busy with the day that they don't take that time to connect to Hashem and ask for their heart's desires, because this is the date where anybody who asks receives. So keep that in mind. So Bezat Hashem, you have an easy fast. Chag Sameach. And we have a beautiful rest of the week and a Shabbat Shalom.